Y'all, I'm over here stressing. I found out, like, well, first off, I have other videos up on my shorts where I explain my situation with my children and my foster parents. Now I'm finding out there's pedophiles contacting my children online. I believe that they know about it. I remember some years ago when my sister was about 14. She's 21 now. But I got a notification about a social media she had on my phone. I think I got the message. I guess she was using one of my mom's old phones or like something. But somehow she popped up. You know how it notifies you people you know are online or on certain social media sites that you are also on. So I don't know how deep this is. I was only shown some messages by a government agency because I guess they didn't do enough digging to realize my children don't live with me. Well, five of them don't live with me. They're my foster parents, and you all can go through their situation via the other videos. But I was contacted. I believe it's because they don't know that the children aren't with me. But it could be also because if they feel like my foster parents know about this, they don't want them to know, but I've already let it slip because I just cussed my mom out. My foster mom via messenger. Like, I didn't really cuss her out. I'm just like, how did y'all tell me about this? Because I'm assuming they know. Because also the picture of one of the men looked like my foster dad, meaning that they could be a relative on there sending provocative messages or comments to my son. My son just turned 16 in November. But there are other things as well that I don't really want to get into. It's hard. But I was shown printed messages. I'm sorry. It's just tough. I feel like they know about it. But honestly, 10 years ago when I sent my oldest daughter, basically a short part of it is every time I was pregnant, by the time I was giving birth, DFAX was arriving. And these phone calls, like the only person who knew I was pregnant was like my foster family. I wasn't keeping contact with my biological family as I don't really keep contact with them now. I see them every few years or so, you know? So they weren't aware of when I was pregnant. Still to this day, they think I have so many more kids or so many less kids or whatever because they don't know how many kids I have. They don't know all my children. They have not seen pictures of all my children. They only know my oldest child. So the DFAX call wasn't coming from them because also how would they know what hospital to call and make these reports? What doctor's office? You know, my foster mom used to go to like doctor's appointments with me. I would call her and ask her to come to the hospital with me, all this good stuff. So even one time they had me to verify. They were like, okay, well, we need you to verify that this person has your kids and verify your kids weren't taken from you. Even though these are DFAX records, they can look in their system, you know. And so I had to call her in front of them. At first, they told me not to say that they were in the room. I said, well, yeah, they talked to me and, you know, they want to, and, you know, like they were asking me if my kids had been taken from me. She was like, but they haven't. And I was like, right, like I signed guardianship to you, right? Because, you know, I was scared that they would get taken because they were false DFAX reports or, you know, whatever. And this is when I was giving birth to my twins. So the lady ended up chiming in. She was like, hi, is this such and such? She verified her name. And she said, so you're not the one that called the hospital and, you know, like, because they said that they were her mom. Well, you know, it could have been her biological mom, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, they called from a private number, so, you know, where are you located? And so, basically, I don't really remember how the entire conversation went, but she basically verified that I had never done anything to my children. She had verified that none of my children were forcibly taken and that my other daughter, like I signed guardianship coming out of foster care because coming out of foster care, they told me my son was going to come with me. And against the judge's wishes, DFAX tried to put him for adoption without letting him come with me. So I hurried and I said, I want to sign guardianship to you guys because I'm in school and I didn't have my own place. And, you know, like if I signed guardianship, then they had no choice but to give them my son, you know, because he was automatically in DFACS because I was already in DFACS custody. So he was automatically in DFACS custody. So with my oldest daughter, it was the same thing. Phone calls put into the hospital saying that I was medically neglecting my child. And I was like, well, she's not even born yet, you know, da-da-da-da. And I go to the doctor all the time, da-da-da-da, you know. But these are just false allegations. And what my mom told me, well, you know, my lawyer said, and I never thought, like, why does she have a lawyer for this? You know, I never thought that. And she said, well, my lawyer said, well, if you sign guardianship, that they can't take her from me. And I believe this when she said it with my twins as well, because something else happened at their daycare and I was being investigated. And again, I was afraid because I went through foster care and it was not a good experience. And I also didn't want my children separated. I didn't want them somewhere where I thought they would be unsafe. I didn't want them somewhere where I didn't know who they were with or where I could contact them. And pretty much that's where I'm at. I don't know my children are safe, because I trusted someone who was always hiding things and lying to me and keeping me from my children, making my children think I don't want to be around, making my children think I'm a bad person. And pretty much like she has her own story going on, you know? But pretty much like I'm not able to see my kids unless I'm giving her money or doing what she's telling me to do. And I stopped giving her money because years ago, I was homeless. And every dollar and dime I earned, about $700 a week I was giving her. As well as I was in situations where I was trafficked. And I would run away with the money because she would say my kids need something after I'm already giving her like $700 a week. So I would be in hotels. I might have her come pick me up because I'm thinking if I hurry up and run out, they're not going to harm me in the front parking lot, in front of staff, in front of nobody. So they're probably going to try to hide. My mom's probably not even going to see this person, you know? But yeah, like I would run off, steal the money, get it from my mom. Or, you know, like I would, you know, tell my mom like, hey, take me to the bank. And then I would secretly pull out the cash and act like I withdrew it from the bank and give it to her. And my children would still not have the things she's saying she needs this money for. At one point she told me my son needed a wheelchair and he couldn't walk. And, you know, my oldest son. And come to find out, none of this was ever true. All this medical money I sent her, you know, like for these medical equipment. And she kept changing the prices. And mind you, this was going on for a couple of years. And I'm like, why doesn't he have it? She was like, oh, well, you didn't give me the money. I'm like, yes, I did. You know, like, and it wasn't just for this one child, you know. So at some point I was like, I have to play this out of sight, out of mind, because the more I think about my children, the more I'm going to struggle, because I can't wake up every day and go to work and somebody mentions their kid to me and I don't either break down or somebody bothers me and I'm just going through my own stuff in my mind and I snap off and I lose a job. But that wasn't happening to me. But I mean, the breaking down part was, and sometimes I did snap on people because they were bothering me, but I can be a well-composed person, but not under a certain amount of stress. And my children being away from me is extremely stressful, even if I know they're safe. Or like, because at plenty of times I thought they were safe. I just was like, why am I not seeing my kids, you know? But here we are now. 10 years ago, when my first child went to them, I was contacted by the FBI saying that my foster mother, basically asking me if my foster mother was trafficking me, because I was being trafficked at the time. And they asked me if she was trafficking me and other girls. And so she told me that they contacted her and said some other stuff. I don't know, because of course I called her about it. But I was like, you know, like maybe my ex-boyfriend, you know, pimp. But at the time I said, maybe my ex-boyfriend like did, you know, like some back page stuff and used her phone number, or because apparently they tracked an IP address to her phone number, which is how they contacted her. And I'm believing she tried to blame whatever on me, and then they contacted me. Now, I have never been responsible for trafficking anyone, but I have been trafficked. And while I was in foster care, traffickers did get a hold of me multiple times. And one of them was a therapist. And I remember his first name was Julian. And he told me, and mind you, she knew my friends' names because I used her phone when I lived with her. I didn't have my own phone at the time. So she would have known some of my friends' names. And so one of my friends had gotten locked up, and they used his name saying, oh, well, he told me to contact you, da 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 da. He told me to help you out with your kid because, you know, they weren't providing clothes and stuff for me and my kid. But at the time, I wasn't doing anything. He would just pick me up, take me to the hospital to see my son. My son was in the hospital at one point. But this was somebody who worked for DFACS, one of the therapists through DFACS. And then at some point, I realized he was a trafficker. But there was nothing I could do about it. He was actually trying to get guardianship of me, him and someone close to him. They were actually trying to get guardianship of me. But yeah, just a lot of things transpired. But I boiled all this down to it can't be her. Like, I don't think she's the one sending these people after me because the same people keep finding me. The same people, you know, are coming on this person's behalf. And they always know where to find me. They know how to find me years later. They have a phone number, even though I have a new phone number, or they might just randomly know where I am. And I remember when I stayed in Texas back in like maybe, I think I left Texas maybe in 2015. But I would think I was out there since 2012. And at one point I was working at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And my mom calls me. And she says, well, why do you have clothes in your car? I had an XUV and I had done laundry like a few days before my year. I had just given birth to 2 twins. I didn't have any help. I didn't know anybody out there. I left Georgia trying to escape. And I found out I was pregnant with twins. So, yeah, basically at the end of the day, before I had left Georgia, I had found somebody who I'd grown up with and we began a relationship and I got pregnant by him. But I was staying with him to escape as well, but he abused me, so I left him to escape him and them, the traffickers. I mean, if you all find out, like, of course, somebody might see this one day in the future or whatever and say, okay, well, she might have done it willingly and da-da-da-da. I felt like at some point I joined groups of people who were doing it because it might be protection for me if I did it by choice and had like a pimp or something. But I didn't really know what to do because a lot of times I just left town not knowing where I was going or didn't have anybody. And now I'm afraid that my children are about to succumb to this unwillingly, completely like I did in the beginning, unwillingly. Because my mom is not telling me about this. Nobody is giving me information. And it is as current as, I believe, November. And now I'm starting to think, I mean, like, because I remember one of my abusers, he wasn't a pimp, but he was an ex-boyfriend. And I remember telling my mom one day, I said, hey, I need $20 for a hotel. I'm trying to get away from this person. They're hurting me. They're hurting the baby. And this was my 6-year-old at the time. I told her, I said, they're hurting me. They're hurting the baby. I need money for a hotel to get away from them. I only need $20. I have everything else. I only need like $20. I said, I'm literally $19 short, but 20 just because 19 is an odd number. And I remember saying that exactly to her. She said, well, I don't have it. I'll ask my mom if she has it, knowing that her mother never liked me, like, because she already knew her objective was she couldn't have any more children. She had 3, from my understanding, that are naturally hers, in which I'm starting to question that even. But, yeah, so that was that situation. She said she would call me back whether she could find it or not. Next thing I know, I was using a friend of mine's bathroom, and he and the girl, some other chick, you know, came and tried to kidnap my baby. I called the police. She ended up going to jail, and she later on blamed it on him. He all of a sudden had money for a room at the same place I was, which I don't know how he would have found me. Now, at this time, he did not tell me my mother told him where I was. At the time, immediately, he didn't tell me that my mom was the one who gave him the money for the hotel, which she didn't have 20 for me, but she had 76 for him or something like that, you know? So basically, all of this transpired after I got this girl kidnapped, because initially I didn't know that it was a situation with both of them trying to kidnap my baby, because I wasn't aware the room she ran to was the room he had bought. So I thought she just ran into a random open room, and just so happened he's there or something like that, you know? So, yeah, he helped me get the girl locked up and everything like that. And later on that night, he pretty much tried to use my body to smother my daughter while I was breastfeeding her. And the next day, like I kept texting my mom, I believe, throughout the night. And then the next day he went to eat, and I called my mom and I said, "Hey, I need you to send the police. I just took 180 pills." Because I had 3 medicine bottles, and I was hiding them from him because he would take like my pain pills, and I don't know what he was doing with them. But mind you, I had just given birth, so I needed my pills. So I called my mom. I'm like, "Hey, I just took 180 pills. I'm dizzy. I need you to send an ambulance and send the police. And can you meet them here to come pick up my baby?" She said, "Yeah." So he came back. I think he had gone to Wendy's to get food, and he had came right back without food. He makes me call my mom. And this is where I found out he didn't say it while she was on the phone, but she started asking me questions like, "Are you safe?" Knowing that he had her on speakerphone. "Are you safe?" And this and this and that. And I'm just giving simple answers like I never called her. Because, well, actually, I didn't call her. I texted her and I erased the text message. She forwarded the message to him because he showed me after the phone call where he made me call her on speaker. So I was like, "Yes, I'm safe," or, whatever. And because I gave her the full address, I gave her the hotel room number, everything. So after after I got off the phone with her, he tells me, he's like, "She's the one who told me where you at. She the one who gave me the money. Da 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 da, just that da da da." And then he beat me. He proceeds to just beat me until I threw up as much as he's like, "I could tell you took some pills because your eyes rolling and this and this and that." And he starts telling me she's the one, and she told me you was going to try to leave me and da 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 da. And he's just beating me. And then later on that night is when, pretty much like I think I ended up running away that night. I went to like a Dunkin' Donuts on Memorial Drive, called the police. He threw a couple of piss on me or whatever, da da da. At some point, I was able to somehow, I don't remember how I ended up meeting up with my mom to let her pick up my daughter. But also while I was in the hospital giving birth to her, defect showed up saying that someone had called as well. Mind you, he was in the hospital room with me all this time. She keeps trying to blame it on him. Later on, after I let her pick up my baby, now I know for a fact he called defects after I let her babysit, after I asked her to come pick up my baby, because he told me. But while he was in the hospital with me, someone called as well. Now, this is what is in the report. The report, her discharge papers, says that they verified the person knew me before sending defects by forwarding the phone call to the room to let them speak to me to verify that I had a relationship with this person. They knew who I was. They were familiar with me, so on and so forth. And she was the only person who I spoke to on the phone. Immediately after that, they said, "Oh, well, we need to go and, check the baby's temperature." And I was like, "Why y'all got to take her out the room?" As soon as they walk out the room, defects walks in, so on and so forth. I ended up being able to leave my child because I had done nothing wrong. There was no drugs in my system, so on and so forth, They didn't even have a valid accusation. The accusation is that I had, at 27, I had 17 kids, and 5 of my children lived with her, which at the time I only had 4. Besides the one I was giving birth to at that very moment. Now, a government agency contacted me. And I had to look at conversations that pedophiles are having with my children on social media. And they're again asking me about trafficking allegations in my family, my adopted family or foster family, because they never legally adopted me. It was just something they had me believing, oh, you're a part of the family, because it was a goal to have my children. I don't really know. I don't know. I mean, I'm very angry. I'm very upset. I'm very afraid because when I say these traffickers, these pedophiles, whatever, I was 12 when I started being trafficked. And I was in foster care. And it took, I want to say maybe like 4 to 6 months for anybody to even report me missing. I was calling my counselors whenever I could get to a phone. I was calling my caseworkers, and they kept just saying, go back to the house. And I said, they're not letting me in. They're not letting me in. And this wasn't the same family. It started before them, which is another reason I thought this had to be a mistake when they contacted me 10 years ago. This has to be a mistake, right? But when I have been thinking about details of things that have happened to me and yeah, like just conversations that I've had or things that I had said to me. I'm not going to say conversations because they're one-sided. If a man's telling me, oh, your family don't want you, your family the one who put you out here like this, they're not directly saying, well, your family told me where to come find you and da-da-da-da-da, and they don't want you to have your kids, so they want harm to come. They're not saying that directly, but they're like, oh, your people the one who put you out here. People don't, they know I'm a minor. They know I grew up in foster. They know, you know, so much. And I feel like if you give certain people a certain amount of money and they have a motive against you already, and this thing that they're being provided extra money for will help them achieve that goal as well as finances, I feel like people would do it. Some people, because I'm not the one. I'm the one who will be like, yeah, give me the money. This is, and I'll fucking murder you if I hear about you going after anybody's fucking child. I don't give a fuck what I have against that person or that fucking child, because some of these kids bad as hell, but I would never do that to a child. I would never do that to an adult or their child. Selling a human being. Selling somebody's location who is afraid of the other person because, and just to confirm, my mother did give my ex money to find me and abuse me, you know, whatever. At some point, we all together, me, her, my little baby, me, my ex, my little baby, went to meet them at High Hop up the street from that same hotel, like maybe a couple days after it happened. And I asked my mom, I said, you gave him the money for the hotel, but you said, she was like, yeah, because he said you were in danger. And I told you I was running from him because he was the danger. I told you that. Well, he said you were in danger. And I don't even remember continuing the conversation because I know my foster dad is not going to allow me to go back and forth. I'm going to always be the bad guy. I'm not allowed to express feelings. I'm not allowed to upset her. And when I say upset her, I don't mean like yelling, curse, and fuss. I mean, I'm not allowed to have a conversation with her that irritates her to the point that she chooses to yell before I'm yelling and act emotional, even if I'm not accusing, but simply asking questions. If it upsets her, and she chooses to over-exaggerate and yell and scream and act like somebody's hurting her, I'm not allowed, even if we're in front of 1 million people and I'm not doing anything wrong and my voice is this calm and she's yelling and screaming at me, I'm the bad guy. And this is like universal in very many family dynamics situations. And it's hurtful because in foster care, I was always made to believe that my mom, my biological mom, abusing me and starving me and doing things to me was my fault. Whenever people did, like one girl tried to push me down the stairs while I was holding my oldest son when he was a little baby. And somehow that was my fault for getting upset with her for. She tried to push me and my baby downstairs. She tried to slam my child in the door. And you know what they said? Well, cultural differences because she's Hispanic. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with? I said no. She ripped up all my phone numbers for me to contact, like my doctors, my friends. I had all my numbers wrote down because I didn't have a cell phone. And pretty much because I'm bigger than most people. And I wasn't always 300 pounds, but I've always been 5'7" since I was about 12 years old. Also, I've been traumatized. I've been through a lot. And at some point, when I think I was about 14, a therapist finally got it in my head. What happened to you is not your fault. And so I think I gained the strength to start defending myself. And I think I have a right to be angry. Some people call me an angry black woman. I think I have a right to be angry when somebody tries to hurt me, mentally, emotionally, or physically. When you try to manipulate me or you try to talk to me any kind of way, I think I have the right to match your energy. I think I have the right to even go above your energy if I'm calmly asking you, hey, please don't treat me like that. Please don't talk to me like that. Because I give people chances before I go to 100. You know what I'm saying? I give you a couple chances in most cases, especially if I'm at work or in public, I'll give you a chance. But because I'm nice and soft-spoken, and I'm going to be seen as aggressive because I'm taller than you, or now I'm bigger, wider, because I'm like 300 pounds now. I used to be about 20, but I was always taller than most people I was around. And so I'm always the bad guy. And it was bad because I had the same shit growing up. Even when I didn't do anything wrong, I grew up talking very loudly because I was always trying to be heard. So now I'm at the point to where I went through that all in foster care, and simply because I was a foster child, judges and other people, like, there were literal lies in my case files, and people also knew that as the foster parents, the foster children never believed, because somehow I came into DFACS when I was like 11, I believe, and they have this thing, if you're over a certain age, that you must be the reason you're in foster care. Because what I realized as well when I was a teenager, I didn't realize this at first, because I didn't ask everybody their situation because mine was so painful. I didn't want to talk about it. I would just try to enjoy my moments or, go through whatever I was going through. But I realized a lot of children are in foster care due to disciplinary problems. They might be put into certain group homes and things by the court system because their parents are not properly disciplining them or don't know how to handle them, or they have become a danger to someone in their home. But they're going to put you in foster care with other kids, right? But so I was perceived as one of these children because I constantly ran away because I was constantly being abused and starved. Mommy, not right now, please. I was being starved, I was being abused, so on and so forth. So I constantly ran away from home. I ran away from foster homes where I was abused. I was always in juvenile because I was always running away. I never went to juvenile for any actual criminal offenses. It was always running away. So, just because I had a juvenile record, I was perceived as a bad. Hey, can you go in your room, Mommy? Can you go in your room, please? Now, thank you. I love you. But yeah. So imagine where I am now. I love my children, and my children are all that I love because, and I'm not going to say that this is right, but I believe the reason I was okay having children while I was single, no matter what predicament I was in, because I've always been searching for somebody to love me. I don't know what receiving love feels like. All I know how to do is give love and be kind and hope that one day somebody in this world will love me. And I felt like even if I didn't have anybody, my children would love me. And now I don't even think that's true. Maybe this little baby here. But I don't know what my other kids think about me. I barely see them maybe once a year. More recently, maybe a couple times a year. More recently. Because I've been having a car a couple times. I've had a car a couple times throughout the past few years. So there have been times where I just had to pop up at their address to see my kids. But yeah, I don't really like, even when I'm on the phone with him, I can't talk to them away from her. And her husband will be like, oh, well, that's not true. You work all the time. I have had two of my children's fathers tell me they see my kids more than I do and that your wife is trying to sleep with them. I have never told my dad that or her husband, because I'm not even comfortable calling them mom and dad anymore. And honestly, for a long time, I was like, maybe he does not know what she's doing. Maybe he just truly believes her. But now I'm like, he has to be a part of it. He has to. And I don't mean like specifically human trafficking because, again, I don't know the details. All I know is my children, this is in their comment sections. Comments. So this isn't like private. What I will put like this, what I found on my own, because after I recognized some of the names, I went back and I searched social media because I just remembered some of the names. This stuff is still posted and it's on their comments. It's not like DMs. I also read DMs, like private messages, Snapchats. Why does my children even have these social media? My oldest is 16. He just turned 16. So maybe him, yeah. But my other child is 12. My twins below her I have a boy and a girl. They're 10. Below that, I have a 6-year-old. And this is very fucking strange because they can't just be possibly doing this stuff on their own. And it's not each and every one of them. But at the same time, my kids are my kids. So I'm going to call them out as a group. Them, my children. I'm not going to specify because, I kind of skipped when I was in Texas. Okay, so let's go back to that. I know I kind of skipped around. Like, my mind is everywhere right now. I'm so sorry. So when I was in Texas, I had a job at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And one day my mom calls me and she asks me why I have clothes in my backseat. And I had a storage bin with my clean laundry in it because I had given birth to twins. I had laundry to do. I went to the laundry house to do my laundry. I put everything in the bin. I put it into my truck. And when I got home, I only carried my kids upstairs. They were newborns. Because I had 2 car seats to carry. I didn't want to carry them individually because I didn't want to actually drop them. So I wanted to carry the handles of the car seats. I just never got around. At that point in time, it had been maybe a couple days. I had never gotten my clothes out of the car. So my question to my mom was, I told her, I said, that's my laundry. I did laundry the other day. I said, but how do you know I have clothes in my backseat? She's like, oh, well, Google Maps. I was like, what do you mean Google Maps? Like, Google Maps don't let you see in people's cars. She was like, oh, well, I tracked your IP address and I found you on Google Earth. I'm like, even on Google Earth, you can't see inside of my car. Plus, the clothes are in the storage bin. So how do you know I have clothes in my car? And, I don't really remember where that conversation went. But what I got out of that is she's hacking my phone. If you're hacking someone's phone, you can see their camera. And when I'm starting to piece all of these things together that have happened to me, and the FBI calling me 10 years ago when I was also being trafficked, they called me and pretended to be a client because they knew I was being trafficked. And once they were able to, I guess they hacked my phone and verified that I was alone. And so they started having the conversation with me about, was my mom trafficking me, or, they didn't have, I guess, I don't know what details they had at the time, but I also don't really remember everything. So I just know I was in denial. Honestly, everything over the years, things that were happening to me, people were warning me, like, hey, you got to watch out for her. Like, the people who I was having conversations with didn't necessarily know her, but I was just describing what I was going through. And everybody was like, no, watch out for her. No, this is her. She's doing. And I was just so loyal and so blind and so loving because I thought that these people loved me and care about me. And I thought I had a family. I was in denial. No, no, no. And I stopped associating with. I cut off a lot of people behind telling me that this woman was a bad person and that she was going to take my kids and cut me off one day. And I was never going to see my kids again. And she wanted to be their mom. And I never believed any of it, and I'm seeing it. And but just me putting these details together, like how she was hacking, she definitely had to be hacking my phone. A couple of times she even called me and like, hey, well, why are you here? Why are you there? You know, and I'm not going to say it was recently, but I'm going to say in recent years, this has happened again, you know? And, or she would just say, hey, are you here? Like as if she's verifying my location. But at the time, I don't know, maybe I didn't question it, or I might have said, how do you know? And I just believed whatever answer she gave me, you know? But now I'm thinking, how were these traffickers that were trafficking me? It was always, they were always connected to the initial person, but it wasn't always him that was physically coming to grab me up or whatever the case might have been, or finding out where I was. So typically he had the information and he would send it to somebody. So I always just thought somehow he knows where I am, or maybe he's tracking my phone, or, you know, so on and so forth, you know? But now that I'm piecing this together, I'm like, what if she was always, because she's always had my phone numbers and I contact her through social media, these apps are on my phone, and her husband can build, like, since I've known him, he can build a computer from the scratch. Like literally, like the CPUs. He used to build CPUs. And he works at Kroger. He's worked at Kroger ever since I've known him. I believe since he was 15 years old, he's been working at Kroger. And I didn't know him when he was 15, but, you know, that's the age I believe he started working at Kroger. And he's always just worked at Kroger. But at one point, I even asked him, I was like, hey, why don't you make this into a full-time job? He was like, well, why leave a good job? You know, like, basically, this is a consistent job, and this is money. You know, building computers is what I do on the side for money. You know, thousands of dollars. Cool. You know, but I know that he's like a tech genius. And one time I asked her again about, I think either FBI had contacted me again, or maybe I was recalling the first time they called me. And I asked her about it, and they told me, oh yeah, the FBI was contacting us because oh no, she told me her husband was downloading like pirated videos on DVDs. They told me that's why the FBI had contacted them or something like that. So, I mean, I never thought anything else about that. But now here I am, and I had to read conversations between my children and pedophiles. I don't know if they're just plain old pedophiles or what. I know I couldn't read all of it. I know that I just got really angry and I couldn't really even go through all the profiles. I pretty much, here's my thing. I don't know which all children they had information on, but it was more than one of my children. That's what I know. But apparently this has been going on with my son for years. And it was weird, maybe in 2022, my brother, 2021 or 2022, my oldest biological brother asked me, oh, well, have you seen your son's social media? And I was like, he got social media? I said, what are you posting on there? And pretty much I found, like, when I went on there today, after I remembered one of the names, now, mind you, I didn't even realize that it was his social media name that I had recognized. I just recognized one of the names and I searched it. So it was my son's profile, and it's some suicidal things on there. It's a lot of suicidal things on there. And under these pictures or posts, there's one pedophile who looks, strangely enough, like he could be related to my foster dad, telling my son, oh, well, you're a cutie, you're handsome, and all this kind of weird. This is in the comments. Now, I don't see any responses in the comments from my son, But this is also one of the people who was private messaging him and who he was responding to. So I didn't really make it through any of the other messages amongst my other children, or I don't even know which other children it was, because I couldn't do it. I don't need to know the details. I just need to know what's happening for me to be angry enough. And I'm pretty sure they're going to contact me again because I just couldn't have the conversation at that moment. It scared the shit out of me. I was angry. I was breaking down. I was angry. I was breaking down. And they could recognize that I'm traumatized. And as much as I want to just say, yes, it's them. Yes, they are doing this. I don't know the details. I'm not a liar. And I'm just, for a long time, or I'm not going to say for a long time, but in recent years, I have been seeing things for what they are as far as my children go. Now, thinking back on conversations even in recent years, I have thought to myself, what if they were connected to my trafficking? Just thinking back on that, and this is only in the past year or two that I've been having these random thoughts, and I don't know where they come from because I haven't thought about these things in so long. But yeah, and to find out even my sister, their daughter, was raped inside of their home. My brother has been raped because and I don't really know if who my mom said it was is really who it was. So she says it was one of the boys they were fostering because she just was so obsessed with getting other children, having more children. She wasn't really focusing on loving and showing the right attention to the ones that she already had. So my brother ended up going into a psychiatric hospital, and because he was taken away by defects. Now, mind you, none of mine have ever been forcefully taken away, but she has. Her son was taken away because he started becoming violent. He just felt unloved and neglected. I don't think my brother is at all a bad person. And honestly, I'm not able to talk to them really away from my mom either, because even when my sister contacts me, and it gives me what you call it, Munchausen syndrome, or that other one. It's another one that they have too, where people defend, protect, and just stay loyal to their abusers. Also, it's kind of like a brainwashing kind of thing, a control thing. So even when my sister does contact me, it's to get information to pass back to my parents. And mind you, I only met them when I was 16. I was graduating high school when I met them. And they said that, the first night that my mom met me, she was just so mean in the car to me. Oh, I don't want any fucking teenagers. And I told them I only want them to send me babies. At the time, I also didn't know she was sick with cancer. Like, why are you trying to foster children when you don't even know if you're going to live to see tomorrow? I mean, and that can be any of us, but you know how sick you are. And I didn't find it out until after I gave her guardianship of my child, of my oldest son, when I was leaving foster care. Because she gave me the story about how they wouldn't let her adopt me. But yeah, so I just thought that's what it was. They didn't let her adopt me. In all actuality, she never wanted to. She wanted my babies. But her story was, well, after I found out you were working and you were graduating high school and you're only 16 and you're a good mom to your son, that's what made me want to keep you. When in all actuality, when I look back on it, she used to call my grown-ass boyfriend. My boyfriend was in college. He was in his 20s, and I don't care what way you frame it, I was 16. That should not have been just allowed. He was a decent person. He wasn't like a bad guy or anything, but he was still a grown-ass fucking man. And it was outside of the law because the oldest person I should have been dating at that time should have been, I believe, like 18 or 19, because I think it's like a 2 or 3 years difference if you're like 16 or 17 is the law. So, like, one time he showed up and, I didn't know why he was there. I was in the shower. They had just left. I don't even think I had realized that they had left the house. And pretty much, I was in the shower. I think I had just gotten out the shower. or whatever, and I hear a knock at the door, and I realize like the house is empty, and so I go look at the door, and I see it's my boyfriend. And I was like, Sean, what you doing over here? Like, because they used to let me invite him over. He used to come watch basketball and, sit in the living room with us or whatever. Again, I was using her cell phone, so this is how she had my friends' numbers and stuff. I didn't have my own phone, but she let me use hers. And I think that's another thing that made her trust me a little bit, or so I thought at the time. But pretty much, he told me, he said, yeah, your mom called and she said I can pick you up and take you out of town with me. And I was like, take me out of town with you. Like, she didn't even ask me about this. I knew nothing of this, right? He was like, yeah, going to, I don't know if he might be texted her first or texted her phone thinking I might have had it and said, hey, well, can you go to Millersville with me to pick up my sister from college or, whatever. I don't know how that conversation went really, and I never really asked too much about it. But when she said I can go out of town with him or whatever, I was like questioning it. So I was like, let me use your phone to call her. And she was like, yeah, he's going to Millersville. It's only like a couple hours away. I said, you can ride with him, da da da. And I was like, okay, well, mind you, I still had a towel around me. So I was like, let me go put on some clothes. So yeah, like we went out of town, went to his house, came back or whatever. We ended up breaking up that day because we ended up having sex. I believe that was our first time ever having sex at his house. And there was a text message came through on his phone from my friend's boyfriend, and he said busted. So I was like, did you tell him we had sex? So that's what we really broke up over. But come to find out, he and my friend got caught having sex. But me and him broke up that day. That was the last time I saw him. But pretty much this was like an ongoing occurrence where she would call somebody I know, like a guy friend of mine, and say I can hang out with them, and then she would just be giving me a pregnancy test like almost immediately after. Like not a week later, but I was constantly getting pregnancy tests every few days. And I only stayed with her for a couple of months. But yeah. I kind of thought that was weird, but I didn't think like, hey, what if she's trying to get me pregnant so she could take my baby? I wasn't thinking like that. But we stayed in contact. She continued to seem like, like she was able to be there for me and, so on and so forth. I would even go and visit them on weekends when I was in another foster home, because my caseworker made the decision to remove me from her house because they wanted to make it look like I was not going to college. Like they didn't even know I was graduating from high school because they did not enroll me into high school because they wanted to make it seem like I just didn't want to go to school. But I went and begged to get into school, and 2 teachers signed my paperwork for me to go into a GED program. And I passed my high school graduation test. And I only had to do a few weeks of school, pretty much because I did day and night classes, tutoring other kids. I just had to attend for a total of 72 hours. And so yeah, so I tutored kids in class, and that's how I got my hours. But I passed all of my tests. So by the time I moved in with her, I was just going to my graduation practices and going to work. And so that was her excuse for wanting to keep me, not the fact that she found out that I have a 1-year-old who they were trying to separate me from. And pretty much the judge told them to return my child to me, which she was unaware of at the time. Or maybe she was aware and I just didn't know it because they were bringing him to visit. But the judge was like, I told y'all can't separate her from her child because she's doing everything she needs to do. Y'all were the ones held in contempt of time, and y'all trying to punish her because she told them y'all not doing y'all job when she came to court. Because they gave me a guardian ad litem who was supposed to speak for me. I wasn't supposed to speak for myself, but I kept trying to fire the lady, not knowing I couldn't fire her because she was my lawyer. I was like, you're fired, You're not, because she was like, we can't bash defects, but they're here bashing me and lying on me, but you don't want me to tell the truth about them not providing clothes and stuff for me and my child. They're trying to get me on public assistance, and at the same time they are still required, because food stamps do not provide clothes and shoes for me or my baby. They're still supposed to provide $300 twice a year for me and my child to get clothes. $300 twice a year, that's it. But they weren't doing it. And then they were like, oh, well, she has men bringing her stuff and da 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 da. Again, this was this counselor or therapist through deep facts I'm talking about this man would sometimes pull up in a taxi, like not in the back seat, but driving it. Sometimes he would have a new car with a blank tag, or like the little paper tag. And because he knew what he was doing, because one foster parent actually was like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna need to take your tag number and da 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 da," because yeah, but he was allowed to pick me up. And like something and I did not like this foster parent, but she was like, "Well, no, I need your tag number, I need your name, da da da." So honestly, I know she probably wouldn't still have that information, but had I thought about this years ago, because I still every blue moon get in contact with her daughter. But yeah. Basically, my thought is if she was tracking my phone, she could have been telling these people where I was at. And if she's any way connected to anything that happened to me, then, I mean, like, let's be real. My children could be in danger, or already stuff is happening to them. And the things that you told me, like when your son was removed from your home, he was raped. What if this was already happening to him before? Or what if he wasn't really taken from you? This is just something you told me and you sent him somewhere to be raped. And because y'all saying that y'all watched the video, it was a camera. So, like, really, what happened with that? At one point, they told me, my daughter, when she first started going to school, she got lost on a school bus and they didn't find her until 9 p.m. And she said she fell asleep on the bus. And they literally was like walking through the bus depot until they found the bus that she was on screaming. Now, here's the whole thing. If a bus goes to a school and it goes through a certain neighborhood, you all have that number on that bus documented so y'all know which bus it is. You wouldn't have to try and figure out what bus she's on. Y'all would have found her before 9 p.m. banging on the windows and screaming to get off of a bus. My daughter, when I tried to hug her, my 12-year-old, I've tried to hug her a couple times and she will literally try to fight me. And I actually, it's not like somebody who just doesn't want to hug their mom, or she acts like somebody is attacking her. Like I asked her one time. I said, "Did something happen to you?" And when I say my stepdad, I mean my foster dad cut his eyes at me so hard. She was like, "It doesn't matter. No means no, and I don't want to be touched." And da da da. And even when she was little, she was like, I would like give her a hug when she was little, and she was like, "Don't touch my body. Don't touch my body." And for a while, I thought she was saying booty, and she could have been saying booty. You know what I mean? And even with my youngest daughter, like this was like some kind of joke to her when I was teaching her how to say no means no. She was like, "No, bad touch means bad touch, da da da." And she was like, "But no, really bad touch means good touch, and no means yes." And, this was like an ongoing thing with her. So, I mean, it could have just been a little kid's thing, but what if she was being taught the opposite? What if they have been groomed? When I say my twin boy, like my twin daughter barely talks and she's very monotone. She tries to fake emotions and it comes off as sarcasm to me, personally. To me, it comes off as sarcasm because I have to ask her, I'm like, "Are you being sarcastic?" But I think she tries to fake emotions because she's generally monotone. Even when she says, "Oh, that's awesome," she's just monotone. um, so it just seems like sarcasm or, whatever. So yeah, she barely talks as much and she's just very sweet and quiet and yeah. But my twin boy, I want to believe it was like maybe 2019, 2021, maybe. I don't know. But for years, whenever I see him, he's like, "Mom, I really need to talk to somebody." And I've seen him beat himself. So I don't really know what's happening. And honestly, I've just been in a situation where I had people's stuff on my background. Like, I couldn't get a place, I couldn't get a job, or I couldn't keep a job because I would get hired based on my skills. I would get hired based on my work. And I would lose jobs a lot because when my background check came back, I would have all these felonies that did not belong to me. And it just, like, after this recent stint, there's an agent through my father's side of the family. Somebody contacted somebody in the government they knew. And this person was contacting, the jail I was in, trying to figure out what was going on. And they were telling all these lies. And then it came out that they just felt like they could do this to me and they felt like, well, maybe we'll call her mom as a character witness because she was calling the jail, telling them things about me, which is why they held me on 7 fake felonies. I mean, she didn't start the situation, but when she knew I needed to be bonded out, and she knew I would pretty much have my shit together before I went to jail, because I found out this case had been reopened against me. It had been initially dismissed because it was fake charges, but it was reopened once I tried to file a lawsuit. And also, I believe she may have been scared of me getting a certain amount of money because I would have been able to get me a house and have me a steady car and get my kid, have a house big enough for all 6 of my kids. You know what I mean? So I feel like she inserted herself into the situation and tried to make them have confidence they would have a witness against me. She was even talking to bonding companies saying, hey, well, she stays in a hotel, she doesn't have my address, because her address was on my ID for a while because I was homeless. Or because I lived in hotels and I couldn't use hotel addresses for my identification. But often when I was able to work, I stayed in hotels. And honestly, for the past few years, up until I had my daughter, my youngest daughter, I wasn't stable because I couldn't get a place in my name due to my background. And mind you, these were not my charges. I'm even receiving alimony documents, like threatening to lock me up if I don't pay alimony. I've never even been married. But I found out there's 5 other girls in the state of Georgia with my first and last name, and I thought my name was just so unique. They have my same first and last name. We're all within like a 5-year age range. So that's why I couldn't get a place. I couldn't, keep a job. But before I went to jail, I had a car. I was staying in one hotel, and one of the defects workers actually called me saying, well, if you can prove you have the income to keep paying that hotel, to keep a roof over it, you can have some of your kids back. I'm not going to say I had one steady job, but I worked through temp agencies. I kept work. I just started working through temp agencies. And I had a lot of high paying jobs. I was making close to $2,000 a week most of the time. But also my hotel costs out the ass as well as my rental car, because honestly, let me be honest, I don't know how to do a lot of things that most adults do because I was never taught. I'm afraid to get close to people or ask people for help because I've been betrayed and used and abused so much. But I try to learn what I can on my own, and for the most part, I can't, I'm not going to say I can't, but it's hard for me to try to go back to school and things like that because I have to focus on maintaining income and providing. Also, I don't give my mom money anymore, but I send groceries. I stopped doing that because at one point my mom used all my food stamps, not regarding how me and my other child was going to eat. And I just didn't want to say anything to her about it. So I came up with a solution. I asked her for money to pay for my hotel. She told me no. And I was like, well, somebody else helped me pay for my hotel, so I owed them my food stamps for the next few months because they are paying for my hotel. Now I don't get it anymore because I'm working, but still. Even the last time I got groceries, she was upset about it because my son asked for them directly. And when I was able to talk to him, he said his phone was broken. He was afraid to elaborate. And apparently Maybe his birthday was maybe like a week before that. And that was the last time he posted. So I do believe his phone is still broken. I offered to give him a new phone because the phone that I'm using right now is like my emergency phone. They're on my Metro plan. I pay like $79 for 2 phones. And I have this one in case another one dies and I need like my GPS or somewhere and I just need a phone call. Like even if I need to call 911, if one phone is dead, I barely use this one and the battery on this one lasts so long. But yeah, I offered to give him this phone because from the time I bought this phone, it was for him. I have never been able to give it to him because she didn't want me to. Now he's 16, so I offered it to him. And he said, I don't know. For a 16-year-old to say he doesn't know if he wants a phone and he says his other one is broken. And I asked him if they broke his phone and he's afraid to respond. He kind of shut down for a minute. It's telling. Now this is going on. It is so fucking scary. And my mom has yet to, she's reading all of my messages as I was sending them, she was reading them. And I'm like, okay, well, they contacted me and they showed me this and it's crazy that y'all are hiding this and what is going on, you know? And I probably shouldn't have mentioned it to them at all, but this is where my children are. I have an access to contact her, even if she won't contact me back. Why would, I mean, like, who in their right mind wouldn't get angry and say something? I have a car. If I wasn't trying to stay rational, if I wasn't fighting for my sanity right now, I probably would be at that house getting ready to go to jail right now and getting ready to get this youngest one taken from me. This youngest child right here is saving everybody a lot of shit right now because I can't let her end up there, especially after I know my son has been asking to see a therapist because when he told me, he said, I need to see someone, I need to talk to someone, da, da, da. And I was like, talk to me about it. He's like, I don't want to talk to, I said, and you don't want to talk to anybody in the house about it either? I said, what's going on? He said, I don't want to talk to anybody that I know about. I said, so you want like a counselor, a therapist? And he said, yes. And so I talked to her about it. I think, like I said, this was either 20, I want to say it was maybe 2021, like right before I went back to jail, because I became a target due to all of these felonies on my record. It was easy for them to make it look like I did something wrong, but now these felonies are no longer on my record, thank goodness. And they ended up releasing me because of this government agency that was contacting them about me, and they found out they were telling blatant lies, like, oh, you didn't find her in New York, you locked her up at the courthouse because she went to try and figure out why she had warrants, you know, when she hadn't done anything, you know. So they ended up getting me, because I gave birth to my daughter in jail, they ended up releasing me on disorderly conduct, or I ended up having to get bonded out, and then they gave me disorderly conduct, and I took a deal because I had already signed to take this deal. They just kept making me miss court while I was in jail because they were trying to extend it to make sure that I would take the deal. And so I just wanted it to be over. I just wanted that part of so I took the deal, even though I was out of jail. Also at the time, hey, can you go in your room, little baby? I love you. I'll get your balloon in a minute, okay? I apologize. I love you. Go in no ma'am. No ma'am. I love you. I'm doing something right now. You're in my ear. You're loud. We're gonna take a bath in a minute. But yeah, pretty much, yeah, I just wanted that to be over. And I also was not aware that I had a better chance because somehow these things that were not mine are now not on my record, which is how I'm able to get the place that I'm living in now, because I passed my background check as well as my job being a nurse now. This job I've been trying to get for years, and for a long time I didn't even know that I had this stuff on my record. I didn't know how to check it. I didn't know how to figure out, look, because you know when you submit to a background check and you ask them like, hey, well, why I'm not able to get the apartment? Why, you know, like, is it my background? Is it my credit? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, we don't have to tell you. But they do have to give you your background check and stuff if you ask for it. And I think because of my situation, I didn't know things were on my record that didn't belong to me, charges that weren't mine. I think that should be required for you to tell me why I'm not able to get the apartment. Because what if there's a mistake on somebody's background and they need to fix it? You know what I mean? So I think it should be required that when somebody asks, hey, why I'm not able to get it? If it's their credit score, what if they don't know somebody took out something in their name? But at the same time, we also should know how to check these things. But everybody's not taught. Everybody doesn't know. And for years, I was contacting the GBI about it. Because I don't remember when I found out about it. But I think I kind of gave up. Well, it was when I was 17. I was trying to join the military. And they pretty much weren't helpful. So the sergeant kind of gave up on me. But miraculously, he's also the way I found out that this stuff was no longer on my record. I haven't heard from this man since I was 17, the sergeant, who was trying to get me into the, I think it was the Coast Guard. He was a recruiting sergeant, and he really, like, believed in me. My test scores was good. He knew my situation. And at the time, my child was also with this family, you know? So, yeah. But this sergeant was also how I found out this stuff was no longer on my record, because I don't know what prompted him to contact me or how he got my information. Ma'am, I need you to be polite. Mommy's trying to talk, okay? So that being said, it's just like, I feel like the odds have been against me, and I'm not Christian, but for years, people have been telling me they're demons after me. Christians have been telling me this for years. But also, back to my son saying he wants to see a therapist. When I started talking to her about it, she's like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to find him the right therapist and da-da-da-da. Your son has a therapist. So why can't they see the same therapist? And it's a teletherapist. It's over the phone, you know, it's video chat, you know. So why can't they use the same therapist? Tell me why she now has a PhD or some kind of license. I think she says a PhD or a master's or something. But this was years ago, and now she has joined a company as a counselor, as a social worker, and now she's a therapist. So I think that's going to be her way out. If I say, I think my son should have had a therapist. She's like, oh, well, I'm a therapist. That's weird. Is it not weird that when he says he had... Mommy, can I have a kiss? I love you. See you later. Okay. But that's very strange to me. It's just a lot of red flags. I don't know what to think. I'm sorry. This was an extremely unorganized video. I don't know how to really edit or anything like that. So it's going to be raw. It's going to be all over the place. And I'm sorry. I know this is going to be content that a lot of people are probably not going to want to watch all the way through. But thanks for you guys who do.